Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Normally, we would not be jumping ahead, but I feel like now we have to. We have to jump ahead to this document simply because of what Ashley Banfield did. Already, this is the scenario, okay? This is the scenario. Brian Inton was the first one to come out and put a video out about these documents. And the first thing that he wanted to report on was the very first thing that had to do with Dylan. He read through it. He said things incorrectly. He said something about how she did not see his eyebrows. And then whenever we finally got the report itself, turns out that's not what it said. Not what it says at all. He didn't ask any questions out loud as he was skimming over it. Plus, he also skipped over a lot. He was obviously reading with his eyes things that he knew that he wasn't going to get paid for if he said them out of his face. So he skipped over quite a bit. Then Ashley Banfield at around the exact same time comes out with something about Bryan Kohberger claiming or saying Kaylee's name because of some report, but she doesn't say where. Neither one of them say where they got the reports. Okay, that's number like 1 out of 1,000 million. She doesn't say what page number. She doesn't say what supplement. She doesn't say anything. She just pulls up this presentation that they created that says something about, it's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you, or something like that. Something along those lines. We have the document. We're going to go over it right now. When they do that kind of stuff and they don't put the actual document on the screen, when they don't tell you where it's coming from, whenever she is giving information based off something we hadn't heard yet, it makes everything really confusing. Because again, at that point, no one else had these documents. This was that very, very, very first night. I was live on Thursday night doing something else completely when I was told that he had done this video, and we went to go check it out right then and there. So no one else had this stuff. So he came out talking about one report from Dylan. Well, she was basically talking about a whole nother report from Dylan, neither one of them showing where they were getting anything from, and just throwing stuff out there without any proof of anything and causing a bunch of chaos. So that's why we're skipping ahead to this document, because supplement number 32 is where this is said. And if you saw my community post, then you would understand why this is frustrating. More than just a little bit. More than just a little bit. Talbot is writing his recollection of what happened whenever he got there, which Talbot was the person who was assigned to be the lead investigator with ISP that day. They got a call, I believe it said 12:22, about what had happened. Within 12 minutes, he was the one that was assigned as lead. He gets there, and it's like 2:40 something, and in his report, he claims Payne and Blaker are already there. I'm freaking sorry. I'm freaking sorry. Pull up every PCA ever that we've looked at. Pull up any version from Pennsylvania that's attached in the Commonwealth website. Pull up the versions that are with all the bullshit when it comes to Don Daniels, and pull up Payne's when it comes to the Latah County shit. It says 1,600 hours they got there. Whenever the Idaho Statesman put an article out a couple of days ago with the timeline, and it says that Payne showed up 2 hours after the 911 call, I'm like, no, he did not. Literally everything that was attached to all of the arrest warrants and everything that Megan Marshall signed said that they got there at 1,600 hours, and everything about Payne and Blaker is verbatim copy and paste down to their own experience and knowledge until it comes down to the knife sheath. Then suddenly it changes. But then we also have the book giving an interview from Fry where he is basically telling whoever the frick it was that he talked to about this stupid book that he knew on the call that Tyson Barrett made to him, letting him know about the situation from him driving back to Moscow from being out on vacation that weekend, that there was a knife sheath found. So before 1 p.m., Fry was told about the knife sheath. Not after 4, after Blaker and Payne would have got there and started doing the walkthrough of the house. Why are we lying about the timestamp that the officers got to the scene? If this is, why? Why would you have to lie and fabricate the time that you got there? Why are we doing that? That just makes this look even more stupid, even more pathetic, even more suspicious. Because why are you lying about when the knife sheath was located? And why is it that the one person, the one person that apparently saw it first, also stayed in the room for a little while, all by his little lonesome, and y'all failed to put that in the report? And also doesn't work for the Moscow Police Department anymore, unless something changed. I'm going to have to do a video of just the email that I was sent. Because I saw something that was created in Pullman, like July 2025, talking about how Brett Payne was still the lead for something, and I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what the frick that means, because Brett Payne stopped working for Moscow in April. He was going to be deputized in order to take the stand. That's what the parents were told. That's what the families were told from the prosecutor's office. Those emails were written up from the prosecutor's office, forwarded over to their liaison, and then with nothing additional written by the said liaison, forwarded over to the families. So I don't know what the frick he's being called a lead for in July of this year. But that's something else that we're going to obviously have to try to figure out, because what's happening here. So when it comes to, again, what this report is claiming, he's also claiming again that this is from Blaker's telling him like this verbal catch up about what's happening. So this whole thing about Dylan apparently saying she heard the person say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you." Why isn't that in Blaker's report? Because Blaker's PCA is, again, the one that's attached to the Pennsylvania warrants and the one that's attached to the Washington warrants. So why does it not say that in Blaker's write-up if this is what Talbot's being told from Blaker on day one? Where'd it go? See, I question that because, again, when we went over Dylan's interview, the first part of this, yesterday, I believe it was, how did she word it? Upon gathering more information, she determined that it was really Xana that must have been crying. That's not your own recollection. That's somebody giving you information. That's you taking outside information and bringing it into what you are now saying. So maybe that's why it disappeared, because there's no way in hell that they have the perpetrator saying the name of one of the victims as he's taking their life, as they are taking their life. And you don't use that. You don't come out and use that as some sort of recognition or some sort of connection between who you have sitting at that table and the deceased. What? So that's why this report right here is really confusing. And I really hate the way that mainstream does this kind of stuff, because instead of asking all of the questions about the context of the report, Trashly is just coming out here doing all of this because that's all she knows how to do. It just makes me honestly like pretty sick. So that's what we're going to go over this one. Instead of going to supplemental number 4 and staying in order, we're going to do this one first because the context matters. There's also some other information in here regarding where more blood was. There's also a couple of things when it comes to colors of things in the rooms. Talbot and the guy who's taking the photos call Maddie's blanket beige. So when it comes to a pink blanket covering up anything, it seems like Xana's room was the only one that had a pink blanket. Because this is a report where they mention how Ethan was covered up by a blanket and something else, like midsection wise. There's just more descriptions here where phones were and things like that. So that's another reason why this one's really, really descriptive. And why it's important to compare everything that we're being told from all the departments. And again, I know that there's like photos that are apparently like in the files. And in this report, he mentions starting 3D scans and he mentions more photos being taken. So whatever MPD has and whatever ISP has, they definitely need to be compared. Okay. Again, this is Talbot. Talbot is from Idaho State Police, who within 12 minutes, what it sounds like, was assigned as a lead detective for the agency assist. And the way that this story is being told until he starts walking through is that Blaker, who again wrote a PCA right along with Brett Payne, and both apparently showed up at 1600 hours, but apparently not, is telling him a verbal catch-up about what's happening. So up until you hear him talking about starting to walk through the front door and doing a walk around, this is all coming from Blaker. So what I'm really curious of here is if there was a camera that Talbot had on him, maybe, and he maybe went back in and like listened to what Blaker had to say, or if he's doing this off of his own memory, which would be really asininely ignorant, because look at the dates that this was written. And remember, this stuff happened on 11/13. He didn't go to write this thing until 12/6. So how good is your recollection? That's why I'm really curious as to, like, did you sit down and go through the body cam? Did you have a recording of this? Like, because that's some real specific stuff, bro. Okay. Okay. On November 13th, 2022, at 12:22 p.m., MPD requested ISP District 2 investigations to assist with multiple homicides at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Latell County, Idaho. At about 12:34 p.m., ISP Sergeant Darren Gilbertson advised me of the request. I was assigned to the ISP lead crime scene investigator. So within 12 minutes, they had somebody ready to go, which honestly, that's impressive. To me, that's sort of impressive. For them to have gotten contacted at 12:22 that they needed to assist in something so crazy, and within 12 minutes they had a lead assigned and that person was ready to go, that's honestly really impressive. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's not. But this is where I'm like, what the frick are you talking about? At about 2:41 p.m., which would be an hour and 20 minutes before the time that we've been being told this entire time, Payne and Blake are already there whenever he arrives on scene. They are sitting there, or they are there at least, with Lanier and multiple other people that are scene security. That's never going to not piss me off. Because I don't understand why all versions of the PCA don't say that. Why not? Why not? Especially whenever it concerns somebody who you're claiming was the first person to see the knife sheath. Why are we not being honest about the first time that person stepped foot at the crime scene? Because at this point, we don't know what time Payne actually got there. We have 1,600 hours. That's obviously a lie. We have 2:41 that Talbot's getting there, but nothing that says actually what time for sure that Payne and Blaker got there. I don't know if the MPD records are going to have anything different. I still have to go back in and finish indexing those. And I know that they have like sign in and sign out sheets, but it's obvious they were not there after 4 o'clock. Maybe they went back, but obviously they were there for hours before that. So why are we not being told the truth about that situation? Make it make sense. What's the reasoning? Detective Blaker provided me with the following verbal briefing. Okay, so everything is being told to him by Blaker, but none of this about what apparently Dylan said is in Blaker's report. At about noon, MPD was dispatched to an unconscious person inside the residence. When they arrived, 2 household occupants identified as blank and blank, which would be Dylan and Bethany, along with 2 other females and 1 male were outside the residence. Yeah, and there's also something where Dylan said that she was inside the house with Bethany until the cops got there, which wasn't true because Hunter and Emily and Josie all said that whenever they walked up to the house, the girls were outside with their hands covering their face, like with their hands over their mouths. So they were not in the house whenever the cops got there. They were already outside. The male, identified as Hunter, stated when he had entered the house, he grabbed a knife from the kitchen and cleared the 1st and 2nd floors and then placed the knife on a table inside the living room. The MPD photos, we can see the blade sort of sticking out a little bit from those cups on the table that miraculously didn't, fall over. The officers entered the house. They found 2 deceased residents, Kernodle and Chapin, inside a bedroom on the 2nd floor. The officers also found 2 more deceased residents, Goncalves and Mogen, in a bedroom on the 3rd floor. All the victims appeared to have multiple wounds. The sliding glass door located in the kitchen was open, and there was a set of footprints in the melting snow leading into and away from the residence. There was 1 shoe print near the western edge of the property, leading west into a neighbor's yard. In front of the residence were 5 vehicles belonging to the deceased residents. Now, this is where I noticed in the MPD records that the description of the footsteps are different. So in one, it's like within the first, it's within the first 4 of the first responders that got there. I think Corbin was one of them, and Werner maybe was the other one. Don't quote me on the names, but 2 out of the first 4. One of them describes the steps, like they both describe them pretty much the same way, as leading away from the backslider and going around like a tree stump. That's pretty much the same. But one of them says that the footprints then go off to like the front of the house, right? So that's one direction. That's literally like walking out the back slider. I'm picturing it like on the map, right? The way that it was. So walking out the back slider, going around this tree stump, and then coming out in the front where like the parking area was. The other police officer describes them as coming out of the porch area, going around a tree stump, but then disappearing in between 11:18 and 11:26, which is literally the opposite direction, and like disappearing into the rock landscape. So multiple trails. Now we also need to remember that one of the things that we were told, and again, this part right here is just rumor, but one of the things that we were told about the fraternity and sorority people that were talking about Bethany's story, the few people that were, mentioned how she saw somebody wearing all black, like going across the parking lot area out of her window. That's something that we were told a long, long time ago. So for the footprints to be going like towards the front of the house, that part makes sense. But the other ones where they're claiming that they were leading towards the rock doesn't make any sense to me, because if this was where the person would have come from, like somewhere back there, and then like came into the yard that way, they would be leading from the rock, not to the rock. And they don't describe footprints leading to. It's all leading away from, which I find kind of interesting too. And they're also going to list some of these outside prints as latent. So maybe we need to concentrate more on what they believe latent is, because when it comes to the footprint, shoe print, inside Dylan's area, we've been told that it's like in the hallway. But then Ann Taylor stood up in court and said that it was more like in the threshold, which if there's something in the threshold of a doorway, that means the door would have had to have been open for it to be in the location to be labeled that way. And they're calling that one latent, while also talking about like a cleanup and stuff like that. Well, you can't like latently, you can't clean up snow prints without leaving prints. If that makes any sense, like you can't expect me to believe that somebody went out into the snow to like mess up these shoe prints or whatever without leaving other prints behind, if there was already prints like that were impressionable because of the ground. So maybe latent just means that, barely seen to them, because they're kind of talking about it that way in the snow is sort of like loosely using it, in my opinion. But we'll get there, I guess. We'll get there. But okay. Sometime in the early morning hours, this is where they're talking about Dylan. Dylan was awoken and opened her room door, blank, and heard a male say, "What is that? Why is that blanked right there?" I never understood why that was blank right there. I read this earlier and didn't understand that. Dylan was awoken and opened her room door. Unless it says she said, because blank and heard a male say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you," and crying, that like being blanked out doesn't really make a lot of sense. But that's where this person's coming from. She's apparently claiming that she heard a male say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you." But mind you, in the ISP reports, in the Moscow PD reports, that's never restated. If anything, again, in the ISP report, she's like, after gathering more information, I don't think that it was Kaylee. So then you did not hear someone specifically say Kaylee's name then, because if you did, then you wouldn't be second guessing yourself, right? You wouldn't need to gather more information. You'd be concretely like aware and sure because you heard the name said. But Ashley Banfield's not going to like ask any of those questions. She's going to take this and she's going to run with the most salacious bullshit that she possibly can to get all of the clicks, instead of just like showing the document and asking the questions. I guess because it's just like easier to be dumb. Ignorance is bliss, and she's pretty much like proof of that. She then shut her door. A short while later, she opened her door again and saw someone approximately 5'10", dressed in all black with a ski mask, standing in the kitchen. This is where this really annoys me. She made eye contact with the person. Pull up any picture of Bryan Kohberger. Anyone you want. You're going to sit there and tell me that eyes like that aren't embedded into your brain, no matter how drunk, which you weren't, that you claim that you are? You don't even have to see any other portions of his face. His eyes are so deep set and have a certain shape that even in like something that's like cut out like this, some part of that would be recognizable. And she took it upon herself to go and find his photo after his arrest and exclaimed to the police, "I don't recognize him." And she's telling everybody from the jump, this person looked her dead in the face. Eye contact. You would remember. You would remember something about the way that he looks would trigger a memory. She has never admitted, even in all that blubbering that she did, that she recognized this guy. His voice, his eyes, nothing. But she's adamant since the beginning this person looked straight at her. I find that difficult to comprehend that part. It doesn't honestly make a lot of sense to me. She made eye contact with the person and could see that they were Caucasian through the cutouts for the eyes. Notice more than one. Now, I don't know exactly where the photo is when it comes to the document. Let me see if I can Google it real quick. There was like a hand sketch that Dylan made when it came to the mask that was released by the state. And it doesn't look anything like what they just described. I did find it. Sort of. Okay. Okay. Does this look like it has cutouts for eyes? No. So this has cutouts for eyes. This does not. So she's describing this, okay, when it comes to the eyes at least. But then she's drawing this, apparently. Those two things are not the same. Those two things are not the same. So the entire structure of the mask changed. That's how it sounds. She shut her door again and texted Bethany, whose bedroom is on the bottom floor. Bethany told her to join her in her room, and Dylan ran downstairs to Bethany's room where they fell asleep. At about 5 p.m., now this is where the verbal stuff stops. So everything from here to here is said by Blaker, including this bullshit right here. That's never said anywhere else ever, not even in his own report. Not even in Blaker's own report. Not even in Blaker's own report. Isn't that insane? After about 5 p.m., after a search warrant was signed, Blaker, Payne, Latell County Prosecuting Attorney Bill Thompson, Ashley Jennings, and I, Talbot, entered the scene and conducted a walkthrough. As we entered the front, the door that has 1122 over it that Molly swears that she couldn't see with the light on, this is where they walked through. And this is where it confirms I had Bethany's room and the basement, like when we were looking at the crime scene photos, flipped. Which really makes me wonder if they had the freaking photos flipped. We'll find out soon enough, hopefully. As you enter the residence from the front door, there is a bathroom in front of you to the south. There is a bedroom to the right, the west. It appeared to be unlived in. This would be basement-ish area. To the left, east, was a staircase to the second floor and a small hallway. As you walk east down the hall, a small mechanical room was to the right. The hallway ended in a bedroom, which was Bethany's. Bethany's bedroom had clothes. This is where this is interesting. Bethany's bedroom had clothing on the floor and the bed was disheveled. Not that part, the dresser part. Her dresser against the north wall had a broken door and a drawer that was partially opened. There didn't appear to be any blood. I don't know why this bothers me, but this sounds more like one of the original things that we heard about multiple people being in the home and Dylan hearing rummaging upstairs, like someone was looking for something. It could just be that her stuff is broken. Could be. Could have happened during one of the parties, drunk, stupid kids. Could have happened. But it sort of sounds like somebody was trying to find something if it wasn't previously broken. Because it's a dresser where girls would, sometimes hide stuff, in my opinion. As you go up the stairs to the second floor, you enter a small living room area. There was a folding table set up on the west side of the area, partially blocking the entry to the west hallway. That's another reason why that table makes no sense. No sense, okay? The way that it's positioned, it's literally blocking anyone from pretty much like going down that hallway. It's like butting out past the wall. And miraculously, even though there's blood on that half wall, according to this very report, and I've got something to say, or Lady Di, as she is now, she mentioned that yesterday. It's in this report. So not only is it where there was like obviously somebody with some blood situation happening right there on the end of it, the other side is also like this far away from the doorway entrance that Dylan would have had to have like looked through in order to even see the kitchen area. From how like my brain is looking at stuff. So I don't see how we have blood in the living room, blood in different spots of the kitchen in certain places, and we only have half the cups on the table knocked over. When if anything was going on from the third stairs down to the second floor and into Xana's room, there's no way that table would be upright, period. Much less to still have the majority of the cups standing straight without a problem. It's literally blocking the hall and the doorway. Very strange. The table had multiple red Solo cups on it in game formation for beer pong, along with a small steak knife. That's the one that Hunter placed on the table. There were multiple areas of red liquid on the table that appeared to be blood. See, I didn't notice that in the pictures, but they were also really crap quality. So I'm hoping the ones that we get from Idaho State Police are better, and we can see more details of things. I could see multiple drops and runs of red liquid along the entire half wall. Insane. Across the half wall to the north, I saw more red stains on the wall above the first and second floor staircase. So where the blood was on the handrail, that's an unknown DNA, there was blood on the wall as well. And they decided to leave that untested and unknown. Such a joke. Such a joke. The stains and liquid were consistent with cast off and appeared to be blood. Continuing west down the hallway, there was a bathroom to the left, to the south, with the hallway ending at a bedroom. This would be Xana's room. On the north wall of the hallway, near the bedroom door, there appeared to be a red-colored transfer mark at approximately my shoulder height. Remember that, because there's another mark around the same height upstairs too, which tells me that somebody that had stuff on them touched it. At some point, they rubbed against it as they were walking around the house, and it's the same shoulder height as Talbot. So it's got to be the same person. Got to be the same person, just from thinking. From the living room, looking into the west bedroom, I could see a female, Xana, lying near the center of the room. Her legs and arms appear to be covered in red. So this is where I'm going to stop again. Dylan can tell that she's in her undies. Okay, meaning that she has to see bare naked legs, right? Or else you're going to think that she's probably wearing pajamas or something if you're just getting like a little bit of a glance of her as you're running for your life for something that you don't actually think is threatening, right? But you're sitting here saying that you know that she was in underwear while the cops are saying that her legs are covered in a color. You're telling me you didn't see the blood all over her legs? You could tell that she was in her undies, but you couldn't see that her legs that were bare were covered in blood? Because if you're going to try to say that you could see that she didn't have pants on, then that means that you could see more detail than you're probably letting on. So you're trying to tell me that you didn't see her covered in blood. But you could see that she was in her underwear. No. Yeah, exactly. No. No. Try again. Story don't match. Try again. This makes me so mad. As I entered the bedroom, I saw multiple drops of red liquid near the entrance and multiple red-colored drips on the door above and below the doorknob. A male, Ethan, was laying on the bed, partially covered by a blanket and a comforter. His neck and chest were heavily covered in a red liquid. Multiple walls appeared to have red-colored cast off, and there were multiple areas on the floor with pools of red-colored liquid. We could see that. We could see that. All the red-colored liquids appeared to be blood. Xana appeared to have multiple cuts to her hands, arms, and face. Chapin appeared to have a deep cut to the outer portion. This is where they talk about his leg injury. The outer portion to his right knee and then the neck area. So whenever they're talking about his hamstrings were cut, I don't know by this report if it's both legs. I'm pretty positive they mentioned that it was both legs in another report. But then again, all these reports are different. This one is now giving us behind the right knee area, which is still like the hamstring area. Pretty much. It's the thigh, the back of the thigh. And then we know that this portion of his clavicle is where like the main wound was. On a desk against the north wall of the bedroom was Xana's University of Idaho identification, along with a rolled up $2 bill and a blank consistent with a blank. That's the substance they found on her desk. Exiting the bedroom and walking east, there wasn't anything visible of interest in the bathroom. Outside, which is also interesting because the majority of Dylan's story is coming from the bathroom. Okay, so nothing's there. Where were you really hearing this stuff coming from? Can you even tell? Can you even honestly tell? Because how could there just be nothing? For as long as she's trying to say that she heard stuff coming from that bathroom, how could there just be nothing there at all? I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Outside the bathroom door, there appeared to be small drops of red liquid near the baseboard, a small smear of a red-colored liquid on the south wall, and a hair stuck to the wall. South out of the living room was a small step down in a bedroom immediately to the left, east, which would be, pretty sure this is where they're describing Dylan's room. South was a staircase, to the third floor, and a small storage area was under the stairs, like Harry Potter. To the right, west, was the kitchen. Dylan's room was messy, with multiple items of clothing on the floor and a notebook in disarray on the floor near her desk along the north wall. Her bed was unmade, and her U of I identification was on the floor near the south wall under her makeup desk. There was no apparent blood inside of her room. The storage closet was tidy with nothing of interest noted. The kitchen counters were cluttered with dirty dishes, orange containers, and a fast food bag from Jack in the Box labeled Xana near the sink. I have so many issues with this. This was the first thing that we saw. And the only thing that I can really think of now is there had to have been something that showed that Xana opened that door and grabbed that food. That's why I want those other cameras. The one that I told you guys that Mikey sent me the address for. I want those other cameras. The one that talks about seeing Molly pulling up into King Road and getting out of her car and all the things. Because that to me is the only way that they are going to be able to proof of life for Xana prior to the event is if they actually have her on camera after the Dasher leaves, opening the door and bringing that food inside the house. Because this bag is like crusty, nasty, gross. It's right next to an old coffee cup that looks crusty, nasty, disgusting. And it has Xana's name on it in marker, but we know that the order came from Ethan's account, not Xana's. That's why them using it for Xana this entire time has made no sense. None whatsoever. And then whenever Molly, we finally figured out who she was, her story's just as crackhead as we thought it was going to be. Okay. And even then, we get, she scanned it and left it at the door. So then how are you using this as proof of life for Xana? How? The only thing I can think of is that same camera that saw her pull into King Road had to have seen Xana open the door. So why don't they just tell us that? Why can't they just tell us that? That at this timestamp on the freaking camera across the street, where Molly was seen pulling in and getting out of her car and dropping it off and getting back in and pulling out and leaving. They then see Xana open the freaking door and pick up the food off the damn ground. Why can't they just tell us that? Is it because they can't? Super curious, because we don't know anything about the food order. We don't know if it was taken from the door. We don't know anything. We just know that whenever the cops started showing up and we started learning about things, we didn't see it outside. But that's a really small amount of time to have gotten the order and then all hell to break loose. Really small amount of time. So I'm hoping that I get that camera footage soon, if they release it. Because I want to see what happens. I want to see what happens. Let's continue. And also remember, that stuff got moved around a lot. Like, I don't know if they ever like bagged it, tagged it for anything or whatever, but it went from the kitchen table, like it went from the kitchen where it was whenever we saw the photos to a whole different place in the kitchen, to where it was now like on the other side of the sink compared to where it was in the original photos. And now it's standing next to a plant that's been knocked over. But then in another photo, it's all like on the table that you can see through a different window. Like, they moved that crap all over the place. And now in this report, we find out there was blood in the kitchen, and that's probably why. But if you knew that Jack in the Box is what she ordered, why wouldn't you take in that Jack in the Box bag? But then again, in her room, there was another bag. I don't know if it's Taco Bell or I don't know if it's Jack in the Box. They both have purple in their logos. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I don't know. It's one of the two. But there's blood on it. And it's in her room. And I don't know if Xana's name would have been on the tag if it was ordered from Ethan's account, and Ethan's account is where we have the receipt from. That's why that whole thing is confusing too. And I know that it might be nothing, but details matter. Okay. The sliding glass door was just over halfway opened. On the outside of the window on the south wall were 2 handprints and a possible face print on the glass. I knew that I had heard something or read something about a face print as well. I didn't remember exactly which report it was with MPD, but I know that we'd heard that part before. There were also red-colored drips on the north side of the cabinets near the sink and a red-colored liquid drop on the floor. The red-colored marks appeared to possibly be blood near the sink. Remember, she said she heard water at some point, or at least that was one of the rumors. Could be the bathroom, could be the kitchen. We don't really freaking know, do we? I don't think anybody does. As they walked south up the stairs, they switched back to the north. On the center wall banister were red-colored liquid smears. They appeared to be blood smears. At the top of the stairs was a small hallway. Directly to the left, west, was a bedroom, which is Kaylee's. The bedroom was clean, with the bed unmade. This is where I think this is Maddie's jacket, which I know a lot of people were like, oh, it was Maddie's jacket outside by that fire hydrant, and it still very well could be. But the fact that we know that they did get home at some point, and we know that she was in a black jacket, I don't know if there's a photo for this or not in the ISP stuff. I haven't gone through and specifically tried to find all of those. I just know that they're in here somewhere. But this mentions how in Kaylee's room, there was a black colored coat laying on the ground next to the bed to the left side. Now, Maddie might be one of those people that just strips where she strips, because her shoes and her pants were on the floor, like those boots that she wore, and her pants, her blue jeans, were on the floor in the room where they were found. But she could have taken her jacket off in Kaylee's room. So hopefully we see the photos and we can tell that it's the same one, because that would get rid of the one at the hydrant, hopefully, if this is the right one. Partially behind the door on the north wall was a wired dog kennel. There didn't appear to be any blood inside the room. Now remember, this is after 5 o'clock, so at this point, Murphy's not supposed to be in that room anymore. That's why he's not describing Murphy. On the right side, east of the hallway, it ended with a bathroom. To the south of the bathroom was a small bedroom, which would be Maddie's. There didn't appear to be anything of interest in the bathroom itself. So both bathrooms, nothing. Okay. As I entered the bedroom, there was a bed directly to the left, just like the photo shows. On the bed were Goncalves and Mogen. They were covered by a beige-colored comforter. I'm just going to assume at this point that the same person, Nunez, who got Kaylee and Xana messed up, also got the blanket screwed up, because Maddie's room had a beige blanket. I mentioned that whenever we were looking at the photos, it confused me because everything that they were describing was not what we were seeing. And whenever you go back and you look at photos and stuff on social media of her room, of Maddie's room, she had a neutral palette going on in there. Tans, whites, creams, beiges, which would also very well go with the macrame that I thought was a mop that I was hanging up on her wall. So there wasn't a pink blanket, because there's even like we can see a white blanket on top of the beige one. There was only a beige blanket. The pink blanket was only in Xana's room. That's my only conclusion at this point. They were covered in a beige colored comforter with a large pool of red liquid near the center of the comforter, which is another thing that we noticed, that with all of the injuries that they claim that Kaylee had to her facial area, the majority of the red stuff is like in the middle, mostly near like her abdomen in the center. Multiple walls and the ceiling had multiple areas of red colored cast off. Mogen had multiple visible cuts on her face. They also said on her forearms in another report, like she had tried to shield herself. Goncalves had severe trauma to her face and visible cuts with a large amount of dried on her face. This is a big trigger warning. There appeared to be aspirated blood coming from her mouth. That's where Steve got that she basically drowned on her own blood. That's horrible. Because it really makes you wonder, like, how long? Like, I know that her injuries are really, really bad, but people have survived insane shit. Insane shit. So knowing that, how long? Enough to where if 911 would have been called the first time asshole heard screaming that maybe somebody's life could have been saved? Is that how long? I'd love to know. Near Mogen's left hip was a tan-colored leather sheath partially covered by the comforter. That's a little bit higher up than what we remember. But maybe they just weren't too specific. Okay. We need to get all of the descriptions together for this knife sheath. On the door edge, I saw multiple red-colored transfer smears. The upper mark was at approximately my shoulder height. All the red-colored liquids in the room were consistent with that. So again, there's another transfer mark, shoulder height, meaning it probably was the same person and probably around the same area of the body that had red stuff on it. At about 5:24 p.m., I assigned Detective Jake Schwecke to start a pre-evidence process video. I directed ISP Detective Gideon Roberts to start scene overview photographs. I directed ISP Detective Hugh Powell to complete a scene sketch. After the vehicles were videoed and photographed, I directed Sergeant Darren Gilbertson to search them, and then it lists all of the vehicles. I know that we've talked about the black Ford Explorer before, but I don't even remember like seeing that damn thing. If you want to be so serious, let me look at the photos again, just the ones we have on Google. Let me just glance at them real quick. Because I don't recall there being a freaking Ford Explorer. And I know that I have like all kinds of photos and stuff in my on my USB drive. Like the only thing I can think of was like, was it parked on the road? Because see, like this is Xana's car. This is the, bro, this Range Rover was a piece of shit. I skimmed through some of the other reports. That damn check engine light, oh, there it is right there. So it was parked right behind Ethan. There it is. Okay. I guess whenever I think Ford Explorer, I think Ford Explorer, like old school Ford Explorer that looked like more boxy. So maybe that's why it didn't really register. So it's that one right there. But that Range Rover was a piece of shit, bro. That thing was a 2015, which is older than my Honda. Like, I feel like reading what she did with her Range Rover is so much like what I did with my Honda, and they both ended up being pieces of shit, okay? She sold a car, which was smart because she got probably more value for selling it and bringing the cash in for a down payment than the dealership would have given her, because that's what they do. They screw you over on value whenever you use a vehicle as a down payment instead of using cash. She put either $6,300 or $6,500 down on a 2015. Okay. Plus one of the grandmas put like another $1,000 down on a credit card. Okay. She got this damn thing on the 10th. She was no longer alive by the 13th. She got this thing on the 10th. And by the 11th, she was driving down to Moscow. The damn check engine light had already come on her. What? She put a down payment, ran her credit, gave them her income, because, you know, big girl job and all. And the damn check engine light came on. Sometime between her getting it on Thursday and passing away on Sunday, the damn check engine light came on. I'd have rammed that thing right through the office. Gotta be kidding me. Anyway, okay. At about 6:30 p.m., I started 3D scans of Kernodle and Mogen's rooms. At about 7:05, Detective Powell, Detective Schwecke, and I started marking the evidence with numbered placards while Detective Roberts photographed the exhibits. The following evidence was recorded and or collected. This is where we get into some latent prints outside. We have a shoe casting that they took near the fence line on the west side. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 latent prints that were collected from the exterior of the south kitchen window. And then another one from the sliding door. And then another one from the front door. Remember how Bethany said that she got woken up by a firecracker and some bright lights underneath her door that were right there on the first floor? They didn't tell us they had footprints on the bottom floor. It's amazing how they acted like this blood on the damn on the stair rail between the first and the second floor was so not important. They just shelved it and didn't even matter. But there's blood on the freaking walls right there. The incompetence. I can't understand that. I don't understand. Like, what book are you really reading from? You skipping a couple of lines? What's going on here? I don't know. I don't understand. Okay. Then they took pictures of Xana and the gray colored iPhone that was next to her. Now, this is where I'm going to just go ahead and assume they switched phones for some reason, but this makes me believe that Ethan was not asleep because of how they put this here. The gray iPhone, which I can only assume is Ethan's, was on the floor next to Xana, but on the bed next to Ethan's body was her pink iPhone. The DoorDash came from Ethan's account, so if she really did order it, I guess it would make sense for her to have his phone. But if the food had already showed up and the DoorDash was already gotten and she was already back in her room like they're trying to tell us, why did she still have his phone and why was her phone still in the bed next to him? Questions. So they had the gray colored iPhone on the floor next to her body and then a pink colored laptop on a chair on the floor. Then they have Ethan and a pink colored iPhone next to him on the bed and another pink colored laptop on the desk of the floor. So 2 pink colored laptops. Then they had a black colored iPhone located on the nightstand of the 3rd floor. That would be Maddie's. K-bar sheath located on the bed on the 3rd floor, which is, we know what that is. Mogen herself. Then we have Kaylee herself. Then they have the white colored blanket located at the foot of the bed. That's the one that we see in the photos where it shows Maddie's shoes on the ground. It's the beige blanket and then a white blanket like on top of it towards the end. And then we have the tan or beige colored comforter. And then we have the blue iPhone, which was under her head, under Kaylee's head. So I can only imagine that it was completely covered in red. Completely covered in red stuff because of how bad her injuries were to her face. Let's skip up to this note. At about 8:15 p.m., Short's Funeral Home, along with Latell County Coroner LLC Kathy Mabbitt and Assistant Debbie Carscallion, arrived on the scene to remove the bodies. Before moving the bodies, Sergeant Gilbertson and I put paper bags, this is interesting too, put paper bags on all 4 victims' hands, along with Kernodle's left foot. For why? Why are we, for one, not like all of them? Like, I've always seen it done, both hands and feet are covered for just in cases. But what's so important about Kernodle's left foot? Please give us some more details on that, because for what? Then we have this vape pen, which from reading other documents was apparently Jack's. Because part of the story was, which I don't believe anymore, I don't believe this at freaking all anymore, was that she was calling him because he left his vape there. But then everything that we have been finding out here lately was that this was around the time that Maddie and Bethany had taken Murphy out. Bethany had went back inside the house, left Maddie with the dog apparently, and then the dog is just like missing. But then we never hear whenever they find Murphy. We never hear whenever he comes back inside the house. It just instantly jumps to Dylan thinks that she hears Kaylee playing with Murphy. And then as she's hearing Murphy barking, it's sounding like he's going away from the house. Like it's getting quieter and quieter and quieter the more that he barks. But nothing about when they found him, when they came back in the house, none of those things. Just all of the in-between. I don't understand that. So this right here, I don't believe this anymore. Because she's calling back to back to back, and Maddie's calling Bethany back to back to back, all at the same time that the dog is nowhere to be found. I don't believe this was about a vape. I don't know why they're saying that in the messages, unless it says something in the messages that we haven't seen. But I think that Murphy would be more concerning than the damn vape to Jack. I'm just saying. Now we have a latent print collected from the doorknob on floor 2, west bedroom. Is that Dylan's or Xana's? To the east or west? How do they describe that here? So east was Dylan's room. So this would be a latent print from Xana's. Is what it looks like. Pretty sure. Okay. Then we have the steak knife, which is the one that Hunter put on that table. Now this is where we get the swabs of things from the wall. From the half wall, from the walls, everywhere around this table. Well, again, magically. Look at all this. Look at all this. These are all blood swabs. North wall above floor 1 and 2 staircase. North wall above floor 1 and 2 staircase. South side of half wall on floor 2. South side of half wall on floor 2. Wall above floor 1 and 2 on the staircase on the west wall. North wall of hallway near west bedroom entrance. Floor 2, west bedroom, light switch. South wall above bed of floor 2, west bedroom. West wall between bed and nightstand of floor 2, west bedroom. Nightstand near west wall of floor 2, west bedroom. Collected from the floor underneath Xana. Collected from the west wall near mirror of floor 2, west bedroom. Left leg of desk along north wall of floor 2, west bedroom. Exterior of the door of floor 2, west bedroom. Floor near the open door of the floor. Collected from floor near the open door of floor 2, west bedroom. Okay. South wall of hallway of floor 2. Foldable table in living room. The fact that there was stuff on top of the table and I could not see it the first time, that's why I need to be able to like enhance these better. I just don't like the whole enhancing thing because I feel like people use that to like manipulate the images. I just want to be able to see what's actually there because you definitely, at least not to me, I could not see anything like that on the table itself. Kitchen floor near the north side cabinets. Then we have banister of floor 2 and 3 stairwell. Exterior of door of floor 3 east bedroom. North wall above bed of floor 3 east bedroom. East wall above bed floor 3 east bedroom. East wall between bed and nightstand of floor 3 east bedroom. South wall closet entrance of floor 3 east bedroom. Floor near foot of bed of floor 3 east bedroom. We did see little spots. Like we have the bed and then Maddie's shoes, and in the back you can see like her desk and her chair, but then there's spots right there before the door. Collected from edge of door. We saw that too. There's like 2 spots that we saw. And then collected from exterior of upper door casing of 3rd floor bathroom. It's a lot of swabs. Disposable camera collected from end of living room. Oh, I wonder if there's anything on there. I know they talked about disposable cameras in the MPD documents, but I don't know if they ever described what was found on them. Blue colored laptop located on floor near desk of floor 2 east bedroom. Pink colored laptop located in rolling stand along west wall of floor 3 west bedroom. Silver colored laptop located on upper shelf in closet of floor 3 west bedroom. Blue colored latex gloves located in a trash can of floor 2's bathroom. See, the timing makes me think that that was cop gloves and somebody's just a dumbass. Because I highly doubt whoever was responsible would be that damn dumb. I'm just saying. But then again, who knows? Gray colored laptop located on desk of floor 1 in the west bedroom. Black colored iPad located on rolling stand of floor 1 east bedroom. At about 11:44 p.m., I directed Detective Roberts and Detective Schwecke to complete post-search photographs and videos. On November 14th, 2022, at about 12:10 a.m., all the evidence collected was turned over to Detective Payne. The windows and doors of the residence were sealed by MPD. At about 12:18 a.m., ISP personnel left the scene. MPD remained on scene outside the residence. I entered the scene videos and photographs into evidence located at the ISP District 2 office and provided copies to MPD. Isn't that crazy? Please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already.